everything I've gone so far. So what I want to do is essentially create a multiplayer split screen experience on PC, and I really don't care what the game is. I was thinking I could do this probably potentially with emulators, specifically like Game Boy Advance, where you could link games together, or even older Game Boy games, Pokemon and the like, where you could actually have 4 people playing on one screen without any borders, without any windows looking elements on the screen, just literally 4-player split screen Pokemon, or 6-player or whatever. You could fit several of these screens on a 1080p display, especially if it's a large screen. So what I wanted to do was test this theory with a game Call of Duty World at War, which so initially just trying to pick some games, you kind of have to go to older games that actually support LAN mode, and then you have to go to games that actually have some gamepad support natively. This one is a little fuzzy on the gamepad support, but it is there. All the Xbox controls are there, and I have 2 controllers here to test with, but couple of issues. First one, you can't run the program multiple times, or it tells you that it's already running. So I found online a solution to fix this. You rename the executable to something else, and I've just labeled them. There's the original 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And after patching, which is a heinous process for this game if you're not doing it on Steam, because the other problem is on Steam, when you try to load up a game twice, it gives you a failed to start app already running error, and maybe there's a way to solve that I'm not aware of, but it's a big issue when you're trying to run multiple instances of the same game and Steam just won't allow it. So their DRM, unfortunately, as much as I love Steam, is a problem in this particular use case. So what I did is I've been able to get this game to run in windowed mode. So if we run it, you get it to pop up in window mode. I think it's just a console command that you run that'll put it in windowed mode, and then I think I've just set it to 640 by 480, and I turned everything off. I tested this earlier and forgot to turn my settings down, and I was literally running 6 game clients with max settings and anti-aliasing and everything, and so it was really struggling, but I'm going to try it now without it. You get the game client running, and then there's another application that I'm using, and there's probably better ways to do this, so if you have solutions, go ahead and pipe in. But there's this program called Borderless Gaming, and it's built specifically, I think, for applications like League of Legends or maybe some other newer games that League of Legends has it built in, so maybe that's not it, but for games that don't allow a borderless full screen resolution to be used, this will try to force it to do that. So what I'm doing is I'm clicking on the multiplayer application, and then you click this button and it runs it in full screen, windowed, so this is just a borderless window here. And then I'm using this other application called Shift Window to grab Call of Duty and shift it to a specific point on my screen. And so let me label this here really quickly. I figured it out with the 1080p resolution how I want to space it out. So you got 1080p for 6 players. Each individual screen is going to be 640 by 540, and here's the XY coordinates of where those start. So the height and the width is not going to be that big. It's going to be the smaller resolution of 640 by 540. 540. And then we're going to start at left, 1920. That's because I'm running dual monitor, and I have 1080p on the left. So start 19, 20 pixels in, and that's where we got it. So we hit trigger it, and you see that it pops it into a small box here in the top corner, which is exactly what I want. So all that I do now, and I'll move this off the screen, but basically just rinse and repeat of that process, where I load up the second executable, it loads in a window, I do the borderless gaming thing, where I select the second executable, full screen it, and then in Shift Window, I don't actually have to grab the window again. It just recognizes the most recently selected Call of Duty window. I just have to change the left coordinate. So I want it to be in the same location at the top. 1920 pixels in would put it right over the same box that I just had. So I need to add 640 width-wise to it. So that comes out to 2560. I'll just show you there what I'm doing. It's added 2560, whereas it was 1920 before. So that's saying, it starts at the top. It is, 0 pixels, so it's starting up here. And before, we wanted to start at 1920 pixels so that it skipped my first monitor and just came over here, and then its width and height is 640 by 540. And so what I'm doing is just adding on the width of the first one, which is 640, so that it goes over to here and then displays it there. So I go ahead and trigger it, and same thing. So I'm just going to do this as quickly as I can. And explain a little bit more about some of the issues that I've had. So I discovered after patching that this game does support gamepads. I think it came in patch 1.5 or 6 that they did support gamepads. And so what you do is actually, and I'll do it right here, and this is really high resolution, is you type exec default controller.cfg, and that, from what I could find, let me see if I can pull it up here, it says, I don't know if you can see it on the stream, but executing default controller.cfg from fast files. So this is typically with these Call of Duty games, your config files are just, raw config files on your hard drive somewhere that you can go open up with a text editor and change. That's not true of the fast file. A fast file is like a game file, a compressed game file, kind of like Blizzard. Is it an MPQ or, anyway, it's just a compressed file type that the game uses to store all its assets inside of and kind of hide it from plain view. Let me move this one over to 3200. Trigger that. Okay, I'll get this window out of the way. So I have a program here, and I think you could probably see it a second ago, called the Call of Duty World at War Fast File Extractor. So what you can do is you can run this application, and you can open a fast file. So here's all the World at War fast files, and I don't know which one it's in. So I've just been guessing, and some of them don't open. It gives me some kind of an error. Must be with the program. In any event, I just can't view everything that's in it. So it would be convenient to be able to look at the fast file and see what it's actually binding. But I think I actually did locate online somewhere. Someone had pasted, and I think it was from Black Ops, but I tried it in here, a config that binds all the keys to the gamepad, so you can kind of see what the gamepad inputs are. The reason I'm going over all this is because the gamepads, I'll just start this right now so I can show you. I'll just start it. The gamepad works because I've executed this controller config, so it should work right off the bat here. Unfortunately, you've got to go through the menus with the mouse. But so what happens here is I've got my controller plugged in, and you can see that it's working. Everything works great. It feels just like if you're playing on the Xbox or whatever. But problem with this is that as far as I can tell, it only receives the inputs from the first gamepad you have connected. So if I had, say, 2 or more gamepads connected, I don't have, at this point in time, any way that I have figured out how to get the inputs from other gamepads for the other games. So basically, if I were to Alt-Tab and hop into the second game here, and load up into the same game or whatever, I'd be using the same controller. So that's obviously a problem when you're going to try to control 2 to 6 or more individuals on a game. We can't all be using the same controller, obviously,
Fire at will!
So I need to figure out, first of all, how to bind the specific gamepad inputs to each specific instance of the game, and I think that's possible. I just don't know the command line arguments that I could run, in the console in Call of Duty to make that happen. Obviously, the controller support's there, which is great. But then you've kind of already started, perhaps, to recognize the other issue here, is that even if I do have another... What just happened? I can't move. Am I typing? Oh, maybe it's just because it's Gamepad. I think I unbound everything else. So it's just using it. But basically, obviously, my first controller is controlling both of these games. As you can see here, it's the same controller, but only one at a time. So how do you control multiple game windows at the same time? And this is a problem with Windows inherently, because the inputs that you make, whether on the keyboard or the gamepad, are sent to the active window or the currently selected window. So this is kind of the biggest hurdle so far that I've encountered, because there is the difficult and tedious process of mapping every button on every gamepad to a keyboard button or something, and then binding those keys in the game, and I could do that. Not elegant, but possible. But then you still have the issue of when the buttons are being pressed, can you even send it to specific windows if only one can be active at a time? And so there's that issue. But I guess, as I've already shown, and I could pop the other three open, that this does work. You can connect to the same server and you can play with one another. I mean, the only hang-up I have now, really, is, well, there's two. The first one is independent gamepad control for each one, being able to bind these individual gamepads specifically to each game, which I don't know how to do currently with console commands, and I hope it's possible, but I'm not sure. And then the other issue that I'm having is, how do you get these commands to be sent to inactive windows? So, I mean, that's basically where I'm at in this process. I've been looking at, as funny as it is, World of Warcraft has a lot of multi-boxing support, which looks almost like the best option at the moment. Let me put this back to 1920, and the top is going to be 540. We'll trigger that. It looks like the best option because those applications allow multiple key presses or different key presses to be sent to inactive windows, and they also have a host of other things that they do, like macros and stuff. But that's really all I would be looking for, is being able to send keystrokes, but more specifically, hopefully, gamepad presses or buttons to individual windows. And whether that's an efficient process or sloppy, I don't know. There's a whole lot that I don't know here. I just know that I want to try and get this to work, because developing a script or something that loaded all of these at the same time, that maybe threw a server up at the same time, that put everyone in the server. Something going on with that connection, but that's fine. We'll just continue on. I believe we go to, 2060 again, and trigger that. And then we'll load up the last one. But you can see where my dilemma is, and I'm